A husband comes home to an empty house. His wife is gone. Her phone is found on the side of the road, headphones tangled, and a strand of blonde hair still attached. The town panics. The media explodes, and for 22 days, the entire country searches for the perfect mother who vanished without a trace, until she reappears, bruised, branded, and shackled. This is the unbelievable case of Sherri Papini. Welcome to That's My Opinion, where we break down the biggest stories, uncover hidden truths, and explore why they matter. I'm Bacon Bears, and today we're diving into the twisted, unbelievable case of Sherri Papini. As always, this video is for conversational purposes only. Do your own research and form your own opinions, because this one's mine, and let's get into it. Before the headlines, before the country knew her name, Sherri Papini was just another suburban mom living a quiet life in Redding, California. Redding is the kind of place where people wave from their front porches, where mountains hug the city skyline, and where families settle down to raise their kids in peace. And that's exactly what Sherri and Keith Papini were doing. Sherri had once worked in sales, but after being laid off, she turned her attention fully to her home and her children. She became a full-time stay-at-home mom, the kind who color-coded lunch schedules and planned out crafts and meals down to the minute. To her friends, she was known as a supermom, always on top of everything, always present, always posting about her perfect life. And Keith Papini, her husband, worked for Best Buy. He was dependable, steady, and completely devoted to his wife and kids. Sherri held down the fort at home. Keith was out working long hours, making sure everything was provided for, and their love story started young. They shared their first kiss in the middle of school, but life would pull them apart, as it often does, and they found their way back to each other in 2006. And they were married by 2009. They had 2 young children, and to the outside world, they were living a dream, a beautiful family in a peaceful neighborhood, deeply in love. But everything would change on November 2nd of 2016. Around 5:50 p.m., Keith Papini called 911. His wife, Sherri, the 34-year-old mom of 2, was missing. He told the dispatcher that when he got home from work, Sherri and the kids were nowhere to be found. And at first, he thought maybe she had taken them somewhere, but then he found that the kids had never actually been picked up from daycare, and that was a huge red flag because Sherri would never do that. So Keith checks her location using Find My iPhone, and it pings near Sunrise Drive, which was close to their house. He follows the map, and that's when he finds it, her phone, just lying there on the ground. Headphones still plugged in, and strands of blonde hair tangled around them. Right away, law enforcement jumped into action. The story exploded. It gained national and even worldwide attention. The tips came flooding in. The FBI got involved and collected tons of potential evidence. They ran multiple searches, but nothing led them to Sherri. Police had secured the area where it looked like Sherri had disappeared, and they also did a walkthrough of the Papini home, but nothing seemed off. Her purse was still there, her jewelry hadn't been touched, and there were no signs of a struggle. Even her bank accounts were untouched. Not a single transaction. Keith told officers there weren't any marital problems. I mean, sure, the usual stuff couples deal with day to day. He even mentioned that the last argument he could remember was from October, just a little fight over a messy room, nothing major. The community in Redding, California was in total chaos. There were massive search efforts, local law enforcement, the FBI, and tons of volunteers came together. Flyers were everywhere. Social media blew up, and a $50,000 reward was offered to anyone who had information about where Sherri might be. And Keith was right in the middle of it all. He went on national TV begging for his wife's safe return. He swore up and down that Sherri would never, ever leave. Investigators pulled out all the stops. They issued over 20 search warrants, dug through hours of surveillance footage, even interviewed local sex offenders. But still just nothing. Sherri was just gone. The family and the community and the police would wait 22 days. And then on November 24th of 2016, everything changed. It was around 4:30 in the morning when California Highway Patrol started getting 911 calls. Drivers reported a woman, later identified as Sherri Papini, running or standing in the middle of Interstate 5. One of those calls came from a truck driver who had stopped to help her. Sherri was found near Woodland, California, about 146 miles south of where she had gone missing. She had a chain around her waist with one arm bound to it. Her other wrist and both ankles were also tied up. She was immediately taken to a hospital in Woodland, and during the exam, doctors noted she had lost a noticeable amount of weight. Her signature long blonde hair was chopped short. She had been branded on her right shoulder. Her nose was swollen. Her face was bruised, and she had rashes on her arms and her thighs. There were ligature marks on her wrists and ankles from the bindings, burns on her left forearm, and bruising across her pelvis and both legs. Toxicology came back clean, no drugs or narcotics in her system, and doctors said there was no physical evidence of sexual assault. While the police were at the hospital, they collected Sherri Papini's clothing for DNA sampling, including her sweatshirt, sweatpants, socks, and underwear. She had told investigators that this was her original underwear from the day of her disappearance. So once Sherri was found, the first thing law enforcement wanted to do was sit down with her and get answers, but Sherri wouldn't talk to detectives. She said that she didn't trust them. In fact, she believed that law enforcement had been involved in her abduction because during those 22 days, her captors, who she claimed were two Hispanic women, would read her news articles aloud. Articles saying that she'd left her family voluntarily. No one believes you. Everyone thinks you ran away. And guess what? The buyer is a cop. They're never going to find you. She described her abductors in vivid detail. According to her, there were two of them. Quote, an older one and a younger one, both Hispanic. They spoke Spanish a lot. They always wore masks and black leather gloves. The older one, mean, controlling. The younger one seemed scared, like maybe she didn't want to be a part of it. Sherri claimed the younger woman had long curly brown hair and spoke mostly in Spanish. The older one, she said, was heavier, had straight, dark, or graying hair and spoke with a raspy voice. She even said she could hear the older woman hitting the younger one when she didn't follow orders, though she never actually saw it happen. Sometimes they would wear colored bandanas, other times lace masks. But when investigators asked for specific details, like the clothing that they wore or what the writing on one of the hats had said, Sherri couldn't remember. But how did they get her in the first place? Sherri told detectives that she had decided to go for a run that morning. A dark-colored SUV containing two Hispanic women drove past her. The car then stopped and reversed. One of the women had sunglasses on, and Sherri thought that she said, "Can you help me?" She walked towards the woman, who opened the door of the vehicle to show Sherri that she had a gun, which she described as a small revolver. The woman instructed her to put her phone down and stated, "We don't want to kill you." Sherri put her phone down and got into the SUV. She described the SUV as having tinted windows and either no seats or one seat on the far side. She couldn't see much of anything because they immediately wrapped something over her face. Quote, "I don't remember. I don't know. I think she may have tased me. The next thing I remember is all of my clothes were gone." And although Sherri had bravely tried to stay awake during the drive, she kept falling asleep. So because Sherri wouldn't talk to detectives, Keith was the one doing this interview. He was the one who had the recording, and he would try to get Sherri to describe the road trip after she was abducted. He asked her how long the trip took, whether she felt changes in altitude, or if she could describe anything about the vehicle she was in. But Sherri just responded, "I don't remember a lot. I'm missing time. The car smelled really bad, like sewage. They stuck me with something. I kept falling asleep." Papini said that the older abductor liked to hit her, and the younger one would yell at her in Spanish. She described how she tried to manipulate her abductors to give her more information about why she was taken. However, anytime the younger kidnapper spoke to Sherri, the older woman would hit her. Sherri said that she was put into a closet with a bucket filled with kitty litter to use as a toilet. She described the closet as containing shelves and a metal pole to which the woman hooked a cable and a chain. The other end of the chain was hooked around her waist, and the chain was unmovable. It was bolted to the ceiling. She stated that when she didn't listen to the women, they would lock her in the closet. There were boards on the windows of the room that she was kept in, and, quote, "they would play music loudly, like really annoying Mexican music, and they would watch TV. There was a fireplace. I could smell it. I could hear that sound. You know, when you move the handle to open the fireplace, it made that creaky sound, and it was always cold. It was always cold, and it seemed like it rained almost every night. And when Keith asked her if there was anything else that she could remember, she said, "I heard birds. I never heard anything else. They put the stereo right outside my door and they played it super loud." Her abductors maybe fed her once a day, maybe rice or tortillas or some apples. However, if she behaved, they would give her additional food. She said they would give her cream of wheat, and she said everything just tasted horrible, just crap. Leftover crap. When Sherri had disappeared, she was wearing jogging clothes. When she had returned, she was wearing gray sweatpants and a gray sweatshirt. And she couldn't explain what happened to her original clothes. She said she fell asleep during the car ride and woke up in a room with different clothes and no recollection of how she changed. Quote, "I didn't have any clothes. All I had left was my underwear, which she let me wash when I took a shower." She also stated that her abductor cut her hair and put her in an adult diaper. Bravely, she tried to escape and save her own life. Quote, "I tried to get out the first time, and that's when she branded me. They brought in a table, they hit her back, and tied her to the table. When they branded her, she said that her skin made a sizzling, popping sound. It was very painful. She also said that her buyer wanted her to be branded because that's what he liked. She barely understood any Spanish. The only words that she could make out during conversations were things like medicine, traffic cameras, and a delivery date, and what she thought was the word gamble. Along with that, there were Spanish insults that were clearly directed at her. When she was allowed to shower, the younger abductor would stand guard holding a gun. Sherri said the woman told her that they weren't supposed to hurt her and that they were going to get paid. She couldn't remember much about the day that she was released. She remembers hearing the two young women arguing in Spanish and believed the younger woman was saying she needed medicine. Then she thought she heard a gunshot. She said the younger abductor left the house after that for a long time, and she didn't come back. Sherri was alone. She screamed and screamed until she eventually passed out from exhaustion. "I listened so carefully," she said, "but it was all just Spanish." At some point, while she was still groggy, the younger woman came back and said it was time to go. It all happened so fast. Sherri didn't even remember exactly how she got into the car. She believed that a pillowcase was put over her head, but she couldn't recall when or how. She tried to stay awake during the drive, but she kept falling asleep, and eventually the car stopped, and the woman told her to get out. Sherri said the younger abductor clipped something on her arm to free it, just enough to move, and then she sped off. By the time Sherri got the pillowcase off of her head, the car was already gone, and she just ran. She ran to a church nearby and banged on the door, but no one answered. And then she made her way to the freeway, desperately trying to flag down cars. And finally, a truck driver stopped and stayed with her until the police arrived. It took a little coaxing, but eventually Sherri agreed to do an interview with investigators. Still, there were conditions. She couldn't be alone with them. Keith had to be in the room. They told her that they wanted everything, even if it felt trivial or dumb. Every detail mattered. And Sherri told them that she understood because she watched a lot of crime shows or, like we do here. She said, "That morning, I got up, I took the kids to daycare, I cleaned around the house, and even started wrapping a Christmas gift for Keith. Around 11 a.m., she sent him a text message, quote, 'Would you please come home to have sex with your wife for lunch?' But Keith couldn't come home because he was at work, so Sherri decided to go for a run. She listened to Michael Bublé's Everything on repeat, her wedding song. She told investigators that it was good to pacekeeper, and when she was asked to describe the moment that she was taken, her memory got blurry. She said she remembered waking up in a car with a pillowcase over her head. She didn't know how it got there, but the pillowcase smelled like laundry detergent. She felt nauseous, cold. She was lying on the back of the vehicle, wrists aching, hips sore from the way she was positioned. She thought maybe the drive lasted 40 minutes, but she couldn't recall any stops. She couldn't describe the vehicle. The only detail she remembered was that they played mariachi music. The next thing she knew, she was in a room, zip ties around her wrists, and her clothes had been changed. Panicked, she tried to break the zip ties, even cut her lip biting at them. She tried to do, one of those moves like in the movies, slamming her hands down to snap them, but it didn't work. And eventually she said that she bit through the plastic until she was free. But she couldn't make a sound. She said that if she even moved, If she even breathed too loud, her abductors would burst into the room and beat her. She tried listening for everything and anything, neighbors, cars, a voice outside, but nothing. And after getting free from the zip ties, she tried the door, but it was locked with a deadbolt. She stood on the bed to reach the window, which was boarded shut. Quote, I yanked the fucker out of the wall super quick. She broke a nail in the process, but the noise woke them. They came in and hit her with something, maybe a taser. The next thing she remembered was pain. Her back, her side, her head, her neck. Everything just hurt. She said they punished her anytime she looked up. If she wasn't on all fours with her head down, they hurt her. After the window incident, they put a chain around her waist and tethered it to a metal pole in the closet. Quote, fucking pole is the only reason I was there. She said she tried ripping it out, even pulling so hard that her hands bled and her nails broke. She exercised every day to stay sane. She tried to keep a routine, but she couldn't track the days. Her sleep was off, her food was minimal, and she was allowed to shower maybe twice. The first time she showered hurt. There were burns, open wounds, and she described the bathroom in detail, a high-pressure shower, light-colored spackled tiles with a crack, no shower curtain, and a cheap chrome shower head. The older woman stood at the door and the younger one behind her, but Sherri never looked at them. They gave her coconut-scented body wash, but no shampoo. No towel. She tried to escape again. She tried hitting the younger abductor in the bathroom, but couldn't remember what she used. Quote, I tried to hit her with something in the bathroom, and then the next time I went in there, everything was gone. The mirror was gone. The towel rack was gone. And when asked about her hair, she couldn't remember how it was cut or what they used. She only remembered one of them saying, I'm going to send it to your mother. And because of this story, for days, months, even years, the people of Redding and communities nearby were on the lookout for two Hispanic women. Tips flooded in. People reported anyone remotely suspicious, but nothing ever came forward. They never found these awful women because they never fucking existed. That's right, friends. Every single little detail I just told you, the harrowing story of a mother being abducted, tortured, surviving for 22 days just to make it back home to her family and children, it never fucking happened. All of it, just completely made up. Meanwhile, locals are calling the police departments reporting suspicious-looking Hispanic women, thinking that they're helping. All completely unnecessary. Thousands of dollars in police resources gone, sucked up, used, abused, wasted. And while this entire circus was unfolding, there are real people missing, real women, real families suffering. But this case was a lie. All because Sherri Papini couldn't be a decent human being. And as a mother, as a daughter, and as a Latino female, Sherri Papini, I say this from the bottom of my heart, eat shit in the most disrespectful way. So what actually happened? Well, to answer that, we have to go back to when Sherri was just a tiny, wee little racist in the making. In 2007, a blog post surfaced written by someone named Sherri Graff, which happens to be Sherri Papini's maiden name. In this post, well, it was found on a white supremacist website. And let me just go ahead and read you part of it. The post was titled, Keep Walking. In it, Sherri, or whoever wrote it, because she claims that she didn't, talks about growing up in Shasta Lake, California. She says she was a good athlete, but that she was constantly picked on in high school by a group of Latinos. Here's a direct quote. I used to come home in tears because I was getting suspended from school all the time for defending myself against the Latinos. The chief problem was that I was drug-free, white, and proud of my blood and heritage. This really irked a group of Latino girls who would constantly rag and attack me. She goes on to describe a fight she had with one of them. Quote, it took 3 full-sized men to pull me off of her. I broke her nose and split her eyebrow, unquote. Apparently, the post was titled Keep Walking because her dad told her how proud of her he was, literally walking away after a fight with a split open shin, and said that it showed strength, yada, yada, yada. Now, Sherri later claimed someone else must have written that using her name. because everybody has it out for Sherri Papini. She said that it was awful. Her family also denied it. Her dad even said some punks wrote that letter. But I just find it really interesting. I mean, really, really interesting that the two people Sherri Papini would later accuse of kidnapping her just also happen to be Latinos. Also, I say Latinos how I feel like Sherri would say it, like overly pronounced, passive aggressively, rolled, just full of disdain. Latino. They were Latinos. Anyways. Okay, so now I'm going to break this down into a few different segments because there are just so many ways that the sandwich of Sherri Papini's story just completely falls apart. First, there's the fact that she tells these wild, harrowing tales like she's some kind of Marvel superhero surviving the unthinkable. She gives so many details, like down to the smell of her body wash and the pattern of the shower tile, yet she somehow can't remember any of the basic stuff. And then we find out who she was actually with during the entire 22 days that she claimed to be kidnapped. And that part, blows the case wide open, friends. And finally, we get into how she admits everything and what happens after the truth comes out. So let's start with the fun part. Yet another interview that Sherri gives to the police. She left her house through the front door and ran down the driveway. She sees a woman in a vehicle asking for help. She takes out one earbud and the woman opens the door and points a gun at her. Sherri, thinking quickly, squats down in the grass. And the woman says something like, "I don't want to hurt you." And it's then that Sherri Papini, true crime investigator, sets her phone down, secretly pulls out her own hair and squishes it into the headphones. She then raises her hands above her head. And yet, she still can't recall what kind of car these two fucking women are driving. She says a dark color, either like black, dark blue, or black, with a long window in the back. Like a fucking hearse? Like a station wagon? Like a Suburban? Anything? Her abductor was wearing a hat and sunglasses. It was a light colored hat, like a gray baseball cap. And Sherri said that she knew her alleged abductors were Hispanic because of their skin color. Quote, their skin color was Hispanic colored. Dark colored skin. Honestly, I'm going to start calling myself Hispanic colored from now on. Instead of person of color, I'm Hispanic colored. Sherri, you're so silly. And when asked what the abductors were saying in the car, Sherri responded, "It's not English. It's Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. No entiendo, bitches." So then they asked about the tone of the voices, and Sherri just says, "I don't know. They speak really fast. I would just say it was a normal volume." So just to recap, she's in the back of the car, zip-tied, pillowcase over her head, freshly kidnapped. And they were apparently just chilling, chatting at normal Hispanic colored volume. No panic, no urgency. And the next thing that she remembers was waking up in a room. She said she was lying on a bed, a plain mattress on the floor right underneath a window. Her body was stretched across the mattress with her head toward the window and her feet hanging off the edge. Her legs were no longer bound, but she still had zip ties around her wrists. The room had 2 dressers and a mattress, and that was it. No other furniture, no decorations, nothing. Then she remembers breaking the zip ties off her wrists. Quote, "The zip ties were together on my wrists. That's what this little scar is from. My arms were in front." But one of the investigators noted something weird. Sherri's story had changed from her arms being behind her to in front of her. And when they asked her how that happened, of course, she couldn't explain it. But Sherri managed to bite through them. Quote, "Just chewed the hell out of them and then broke them," unquote. Now Sherri starts describing one of her abductors, the smaller one. She had short, dark, curly hair. So curly, Sherri said, that, quote, if she didn't put product in it, it'd probably be really frizzy. I'm glad to know that this woman took time to style her hair before kidnapping Sherri Papini. She was wearing brown shoes. They looked like Guess knockoffs, had pierced ears, and wore, of course, the Latino special big hoop earrings. Oh, I should have wore big hoop earrings for... I missed an opportunity. Dang it. Oh, and she had thin, almost drawn-in eyebrows. The other woman, the bigger one, had dark eyes, really thick eyebrows, and dark hair with strands of gray. I feel like as Sherri's telling the story, she's like, all right, let me think of every Latino stereotype. Yeah. Thin eyebrows, got it. Drawn in, cool. Hoop earrings, Check. Yeah. That's a good one. According to Sherri, she was allowed to shower at one point. She described the bathroom in detail. It was small. While she was showering, she said she tried talking to her abductor. She asked, "Where am I? Why am I here?" And apparently through their, quote, insanely thick Latino accent, one of them responded, "We sell you. Your buyer's a cop." And then they started talking to each other in Spanish. And according to Sherri, the little one turned her body slightly and lowered her gun. So naturally, Sherri jumps on her and shoves her face into the toilet because of course she did. She said the floor was slippery, and in the chaos, she slipped and, quote, cut her foot on the stupid side of the cabinet, unquote. To pass the time, Sherri said she knew she needed to stay alert and keep up her strength. So she would do yoga. Yes, yoga, because as Latinos, we hate yoga. And then on June 22nd of 2017, Sherri met with an FBI sketch artist to create composite images of the two Hispanically colored women who had allegedly abducted her. On September 22nd, the sketches were finalized and submitted to the FBI to be used in wanted posters. These posters were part of a worldwide search for two women who never existed. And honestly, there is so much in the police affidavit. I'm going to have to read it on a live because there's so much detail and it's all just so ludicrous. I could read the whole thing for hours. You know what? It's creative. It's I got to give her that. Sherri Papini is a creative bitch. On March 19th of 2020, the Reading Crime Lab receives an email. Someone had been identified as a potential relative of the unknown male DNA found on Sherri Papini's clothing. This person had two living biological sons, and neither of them was Keith Papini, but one of them was Sherri Papini's ex-boyfriend, and from what I could find, former fiance, James Reyes. Back in 2015, James Reyes, Sherri's ex-boyfriend, was cleaning his house. And while going through boxes, he came across old photos and personal stuff from their past relationship. So he packed it all up and mailed it to Sherri's parents just to get it out of his space. And then just to be polite, he called and let them know that the box was coming. But it wasn't long after that Sherri had called him. And that was the first time they'd been in contact in years. And then it wasn't long before Sherri would concoct this plan and have James be a part of it. On November 2nd of 2016, Reyes rented a Dodge Challenger using a friend's ID, drove from Costa Mesa to Reading, waited for Sherri's signal, and picked her up on Old Oregon Trail, not far from where her phone and that conveniently placed strand of hair were found. Sherri was in workout clothes, sweaty from jogging. She laid down in the back seat and they started heading south. She lived freely at Reyes's apartment in Costa Mesa for 22 days. James slept on the couch while Sherri had her own room. She asked him to buy her clothes, sweats, t-shirts, socks, board up the window so no one could see her, and even help inflict injuries to make her story more believable. Reyes confirmed that Sherri burned her own forearm and asked him to help create bruises like bouncing a hockey puck off her leg. He never struck her directly and didn't want to hurt her, but she insisted. She told him exactly what to do. For the branding, she told Reyes to buy a wood-burning tool from Hobby Lobby with brass letter inserts. She told him what to brand on her shoulder, though he couldn't remember the exact phrase. Nervous and reluctant, he followed through and then threw the tool away at her request. Reyes came home one day to find that she had cut off her own hair, and he had no idea what she did with it. She also used a screw from the closet to chip drywall, staging what looked like an escape attempt. She hit her own head on the tub in the bathroom floor. She possibly cut herself in a fake struggle, developed a rash, probably from cleaning with bleach. And he had hoped that they might reconnect, but there was no intimacy. Could you imagine? I'm just trying to put myself in his headspace. He's like, oh, my ex is reaching out to me. We're going to hook up. And then for 22 days, she just beats the shit out of herself. After almost 3 weeks, Sherri told Reyes, quote, I miss my kids. I'm ready to go home. So he rents another car using the same friend's ID and drove her north the night before Thanksgiving. He drops her off near Woodland, California on a dark road. She brought her bindings, a chain, a pillowcase for her head, and her burner phone, which she tossed from the car. Reyes drove straight home and had Thanksgiving lunch with his family like nothing ever happened. I guess he could be thankful for the fact that she didn't Neil Patrick Harris him and, he lives. He didn't come forward because he thought he was just helping a friend escape abuse. The reason that James Reyes got involved in the first place was because Sherri had told him she was being physically abused by her husband, Keith Papini. And he was not the only person that she told this. She claimed she was unsafe at home and law enforcement wouldn't help her. According to James, she told him that she needed to get away, that she had no other way out. And he said that she was being abused and I was just trying to be a good friend. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think that's true. Some people will tell you in some of the documentaries that I've watched, some people will say that, Keith was an asshole, but all they've ever seen was him yell at her. I don't know. I got to say, if you're going to the extent of lying to be kidnapped, maybe the domestic violence was also a lie. But then when the media exploded with her story, when she showed up branded, chained, and bloodied, he panicked. He didn't want to turn himself in. He figured, quote, if they find me, they'll come to me. And in 2020, they did just that. 2 witnesses, Reyes' cousin and the cousin's wife, both confirmed that they saw Sherri at his apartment. One saw her through a window and the other saw her run and hide when they came in. And after the FBI confronted Sherri in August of 2020, she or someone using her parents' phone called Reyes multiple times in September and October. And if you're wondering what happened to James after all of this, nothing. He fully cooperated with the FBI. He admitted everything. He handed over evidence, including DNA, witness names, and a full timeline of events. Some of these interviews that Sherri did with law enforcement, especially the ones where she's sitting right next to Keith, are bizarre. It's a bizarre watching experience. Maybe we'll do it on a live, but I suggest you do it because boy, is it something. But the acting, the dramatics, it's all just so asinine. Now, the reason I'm doing all of this, aside from the fact that this case is just bonkers, is because there's a documentary coming out. And I wanted to get my full timeline and research real solid before I sit down and watch it. I wanted to walk through the full story, the receipts, and the actual context. The whole thing is giving me the same vibe as the Peacock documentary where they gave Casey Anthony a platform, or Peacock again, where they gave Scott Peterson a platform. I watched the Scott Peterson one. I haven't watched the Casey Anthony one because yuck. But the Sherri Papini documentary that's coming out, yeah, I'm interested to watch. Although, why are we giving someone like this a voice? I have no idea. But after years of deception, media attention, and national sympathy, the truth finally catches up with Sherri Papini on March 3rd of 2022. She was arrested by federal agents outside of her home in Redding, California, and the charges were making false statements to federal law enforcement and mail fraud. She had collected more than $30,000 from the California Victim Compensation Board, all while pretending to be the survivor of a violent kidnapping that never happened. Even as the evidence stacked against her DNA witness testimony and a full confession from her ex-boyfriend, she still tried to hold on to her story. And I have to ask, what was supposed to be the outcome of this? Was it the national media attention? Was it the money? Was it just to get away from your kids? But in April of 2022, Sherri Papini pled guilty in a deal with prosecutors. She admitted to faking the entire kidnapping, lying to federal agents, and accepting money under false pretenses. And in September of 2022, she was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 36 months of supervised probation. She was also ordered to pay over $300,000 in restitution to the agencies and organizations that had spent time, money, and resources trying to find her. After serving her sentence, Sherri was released from prison in August of 2023, just under a year later. But she had returned home to a very different life. Her marriage to Keith Papini had ended in divorce, which good. And the public image she had worked so hard to build completely shattered. And for what? For what? Obviously, Sherri's family, especially her children, are some of the most direct victims in this story. The lies, the media circus, the betrayal. But every time I look deeper into this case, there's one name that keeps standing out to me. A name that didn't get headlines. A woman who actually disappeared while the world was focused on Sherri Papini's hoax. And that's Stacey Smart. While law enforcement chased down leads, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the public panicked over a fake kidnapping, Stacey Smart went missing around the very same time. So in another video, we're going to cover her story. who she was, what we know about her disappearance, and why her case deserves the attention that it never got. And to be completely honest with you, I think one of the few things that Sherri could have done to begin with to make this right would have been to use the attention that she put on herself to help find Stacey Smart. But instead, she's sitting on a couch in front of the cameras for the ID channel, flipping her hair, being so sarcastic, and calling this whole thing ridiculous. And while I haven't watched the documentary yet, as I sit here right now, speaking as a wife, as a mother, as a person, Sherri Papini, I hope you take this in the most disrespectful way possible. You are a total asshole. You stole resources, time, and attention from someone or people who actually needed them. You used racial stereotypes and your hatred, in my opinion, against the Latino community for a witch hunt. And for you to call any of this ridiculous, I think is ridiculous. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. My name is Bacon Bears, and that's my opinion. Don't forget to check out some of our other videos. They're right around here somewhere, and I'll catch you next time.